There is no power stronger in modern society than the power to create and issue money. Then we must consider who it is, which entities are creating the money, and not only creating the money, but issuing the money and allocating the money, deciding who gets a loan and at which interest rates. What we would like to see is that we would like to, for this tremendous power to be taken out of the hands of the bankers, to be brought back into the hands of government. What happens when all this new money gets created to cover the interest payments? This is actually what we call inflation. It is the inflation of the money supply. Basic fact is, in Iceland, only 2% of the money supply is actually created and issued by the central bank, which is run by the government. The remaining part, and the largest part of the money supply, is bank credit, which is created when a bank issues a loan. Credit is created in the system basically out of thin air. The top priority is the separation of investment banking and commercial banking. It's one thing when you have small deposits, which are ordinary people's savings that they may need to access to buy food and other necessities in hard times. But another thing is when you have certain extremely wealthy individuals, many of them who have become wealthy from financial operations themselves. Why should these deposits be covered in full at the expense of others that are perhaps not as well off? Another thing is that in order to provide this refinancing for the new banking system, the Icelandic government had no other option than to take on huge external debts. These debts can only be paid from taxes, from future taxes that will be eventually paid by myself, others like me, and perhaps by my children, and even by their children. We really don't know today how long into the future it will take to repay all those debts.
The mutual policy that the citizens movement formed around was, like I said, threefold. It was to make sure that those responsible for the economic collapse were held responsible. So court cases, etc., etc. Number two, helping the homes of this country by doing it fairly, doing it in such a way that when the government, for example, knew that things were going wrong, that the banks knew the things that were going wrong. We know this, and this is on record, that the loans that had been mutated, but they grew by leaps and bounds because of the collapse, that would be corrected back, for example. Third was to make sure that this doesn't happen again. Then that would be that we would have a new constitution and changes of the law.
Taking a really radical stance towards the protection of nature, because in Iceland, I don't know if you know, but there's a very beautiful nature, and it's been under the attack of big American aluminum companies which want all our energy, and instead we have to sacrifice unbelievable highlands, and it's a horrible story, I think. We built on the Bolivian and the Ecuadorian constitutions, which are really radical in the way that they protect the rights of nature for nature itself, not how can man use nature, but why should nature be a party that should be protected without any consideration into how we can benefit from it. So we wrote that in and we said nature has a special right. It's the foundation of all life.
The second group were mostly talking about the system itself. That's the parliament and the ministers and the judges. They have been trying to increase the force of the parliament and try to do the parliament more independent from the ministers and from the judges.
The ideas that we are putting forward in the new constitution is that 10% of the people can say no to any law from the parliament, 10% of the voters. And then it has to go into national referendum, so everyone gets to vote about it. And secondly, or thirdly, 2% of the people can present a certain issue in the parliament. So if you get 2% of the voters to say we want to talk about animal rights, the parliament will have to take that matter. So we're really trying to put the power back into the hands of the people where it belongs. And so what we done is we tried to figure out where the power lies with the power of wealth and with other official powers. So we put in an article saying that political parties could not accept more money than X, and they should always put their books open so you could know who is giving money to whom. Also with the media, the ownership of the media will have to be transparent and will have to be independent, so that wealthy people cannot own the media secretly and brainwash the public like has happened before. There's only one thing that will scare the people who are in power enough to let them think they don't want to be in power anymore, and that's the threat of revolution. I'm sorry, but that's the only thing that worked here. It's like saying, okay, if you don't obey us, we are your employees. We are the one that pay your salaries. You are there as our servant. If you don't understand when we want you to leave or when we want you to do certain things, you will have to go. And if you don't want to go, we will carry you out. Simple. But that's the way it is.